together, I think, for the improvement of the country, and did indeed and are indeed very, very close friends. So Dick, thank you very much, and I'm delighted to be here with so many wonderful South Carolinians. I feel very much at home, but I want to welcome you to my hometown. I grew up in Denver, and I think it is terrific that the convention is here, and that we are going to be able to nominate the next President of the United States. I think it is very, very exciting. I used to say, and I will say, that in fact, when the Clinton administration left office, we had a surplus in the budget, and we had a surplus of goodwill internationally. Now we have a huge deficit in both. In diplomatic terms, the world is a mess. I don't think I've ever seen it like this from the perspective of national security. And why should we care? Because foreign policy is not foreign anymore. We do know that whatever happens abroad comes home to America, and we have to deal with it. I have just put out a book called A Memo to the President-elect, in which I kind of lay out what I think are the issues that the next president is going to have to deal with. And they are very difficult, very complicated, and require somebody that has the judgment and real knowledge that Senator Obama has. And so I'm delighted to support him. The major issues that are out there are, first of all, how to fight terrorism without creating more terrorists. One of the things that the Bush administration has done is, in fact, create more terrorists. And what has happened, even former Secretary of Defense Rumsfeld has said that as we get rid of some terrorists, we create more of them. And so we've got to figure out a way to do that in a way that does not create more terrorists. The second big issue is how to stop the proliferation of nuclear weapons. The whole system that has guided us through the end of the 20th century doesn't work anymore. Countries are putting together nuclear technology, and it is a threat, and we have to be careful that the worst weapons don't get into the hands of the worst people. I also think we have to renew the good word of democracy. Democracy is something that the United States has been identified with, and part of the problem has been is that President Bush has made it difficult to say that democracy is the world's best thing. There are not a lot of countries that look at what's happened in Iraq and say, I want my country to look just like that. And so rather than imposing democracy, we have to support democracy abroad. The fourth big issue, I think, is how to deal with the negative aspects of globalization. I often, people come to my office, I have a firm, and they say, can you stop globalization? You can't stop globalization, but you have to manage it and mitigate the worst part, which I think is the growing gap between the rich and the poor. It is true abroad, and it is true in the United States. And that is something we have to deal with. Now, there is absolutely no connection between being poor and being a terrorist, but the bottom line abroad is that if you are completely alienated from your society, you are more likely to be able to be recruited for those who do not like us. And the fifth big issue is the biggest, which is how to deal with the energy and environmental problems. And so those are the 5 huge issues that I call them the umbrella issues. And then under that umbrella, you have to deal with 2 hot wars. Excuse me. I have said that Iraq is the greatest disaster in American foreign policy, and that's quite a statement. It means that I think that it is worse than Vietnam, not in terms of the numbers of Americans who have been killed or Vietnamese versus Iraqis, but in terms of its unintended consequences. What it has done to our reputation in terms of moral authority, we have to close Guantanamo because that has damaged our reputation in the most amazing way. But the biggest unintended consequence of Iraq is Iran. Iran, you could say, has done the best out of the war in Iraq and is now a country that we have to be worried about a lot. So we have to end the war in Iraq, and Senator Obama has got a very good plan. He has looked at it very carefully in terms of how to get the troops out. I see Congressman Spratt here. I'm sure that he is working on that very hard with him. And I think that what has to be done in terms of helping our military reconstitute itself and be the military that we need is also going to be the essential part of that role for President Obama. We also have to win the war in Afghanistan. That is actually where the people who hit us on 9/11 came from. There was not Al-Qaeda in Iraq, but Al-Qaeda was in Afghanistan. And what we see now is that Afghanistan is in worse and worse shape. President Karzai is a wonderful guy, but he's basically mayor of Kabul. He's not in charge of his country. And the unintended consequence of Afghanistan is Pakistan. I think if I go around the world and think about what's the worst place, I say Pakistan. It has everything that gives you an international migraine. It has nuclear weapons, it has terrorists, it has extremists, it has poverty, it has an unstable government, and we need it in order to try to deal with the war in Afghanistan. And I haven't even talked about all the issues that are out there in terms of countries in Africa that need our help, in Latin America and in Asia, and the U.S. Every time we think about China, we put the adjective rising next to it. So there are huge challenges out there for the next president. And I believe that Barack Obama and Joe Biden, and I just spoke to him and congratulated him. I was just thrilled that Joe is the vice presidential candidate. I told him where I was going, and he sends his regards, and he's ready to go. And I think that we have a huge job out there to do. We have fabulous candidates. We have the wind in our sails. We have to win this one.
Yes.
This is one that we cannot afford to lose. Because I have to say that having not been born in the United States, I found it a special privilege to represent the United States. And sitting behind a sign that said United States was unbelievable. And people respected us, and they wanted our help, and they wanted American leadership. And they want American leadership now. It is just that American leadership has been wanting. We have a very bad situation in terms of the extent to which people want us to help, the extent to which we need the help of other countries and partnerships. And just in the way that I listed those particular issues, just goes to show you can't do them alone. There's no way. Even if we are the most powerful country in the world and have the best military in the world, we cannot deal with terrorism, nuclear proliferation, poverty, the energy and environmental crisis, and restoring the good name of democracy, and ending the war in Iraq, and winning the war in Afghanistan. We can't do those things alone. So thank you very much for having me here this morning, Dick. It's a pleasure to be with you, and I'm happy to answer a couple of questions. I think I've got a couple of minutes before I have to move on. Yes?